Welcome to the Hard Faith podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Folmar, the founder of Hard Faith. I've been working in the film and television industry for over 16 years. On Hard Faith, we're about asking difficult questions about life and faith in an R-rated world. Welcome to another episode of the Hard Faith podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Folmar, and today we have filmmaker, author, writer, what else can we say, actor, Nathan Clarkson, who has been a guest before, and we have him here again today. Nathan, thank you for coming on the Hard Faith podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Nathan, this podcast is releasing the day before our feature film is releasing everywhere. Tomorrow, February 7th, 2025, Bright Sky. Can you tell audiences a little bit about Bright Sky?
Yeah, well, I will tell audiences about Bright Sky and kind of the story behind it, which also includes how we met. But Bright Sky is a modern Western romance, and it's a movie that has all the things that we love about movies. It has intrigue and drama and romance and love and humor. But it's one that I wrote out of a place of wanting just as an actor and a filmmaker to make a Western. I've always wanted to do that. I mean, who doesn't? But number two is one I wanted to tell a story about redemption in a way that's both entertaining and touching. And Bright Sky, I really believe, does that. It's a story about people, real people who have real problems and real darkness, and confronting that together, and through faith and love, overcoming those obstacles. And I think that's a really connective thing to a lot of people, and I hope it's connective to the listeners out there. But ultimately it's a entertaining, fun, enjoyable, romantic story about redemption.
I love it. It's a great summary of Bright Sky. Where will audiences, in case they tune out too early, where will audiences be able to find Bright Sky when it releases?
Pretty much wherever they enjoy renting movies, whether that's Amazon Prime or Google Play or Apple TV. It'll be there for you to rent and enjoy. And it will also be coming out on DVD. So it's going to be on DVD. You can get a copy off of Amazon or go to Target, Walmart, and grab a DVD there. But so any way that you enjoy watching movies, you can find Bright Sky.
I love it. So let's go back to the beginning. How did Bright Sky come about? When did you have the idea, and how did you and I start communicating about this film? How'd that start?
Well, I'm going to go way back to like when we first met. I remember I was living out in Hollywood, as were you, out in LA, and I'd just gotten back there. I'd kind of disappeared for a little while and had kind of come back and was looking to reconnect myself with this city of stories, and looking for like-minded kindred spirits who both love their faith and love stories and just love movies. And I remember I was reading, I think it was the LA Times, and there was this article that popped up, and it was about this guy named Spencer who made a faith-infused movie that had the F word in it. And while many of our compatriots would see that and be like, I am never getting near this guy, I said, this is a guy I gotta meet. And it just turned out that you were living in Hollywood. And so I gave you a call or an email or however it went. And we just connected and just hit it off from there. And this is why we're here now. But I've always loved your desire and your spirit for, one, loving your faith and wanting to display and explore that in the beautiful art medium of film. But number two, wanting to display that that reflects actual reality. So that faith, that beauty can actually reach real people and cause redemption, which is a running theme through my films and my work. And so I remember just being so happy that I found someone who I felt like there's like no one out there who had that perspective of loving their faith, but wanting to actually show real and raw and true stories, because those are the ones that actually make a difference. So yeah, so that's how we first met. Fast forward, you and I.
And before you fast forward, I just want to
say,
like when you emailed me, I think it was an email or maybe Instagram or Facebook, who knows, but I was so relieved to hear from like another filmmaker in the faith-based space, and one that lived in Los Angeles, and one that didn't just hate me, for having language. You were literally like, you and Karen Covell of Hollywood Prayer Network were like the first Christians that were like, good job, and not like, I hate you. So that
And that
was
was a
super
time you were
nice.
getting lots of hate from the
So much
Christian
hate.
filmmaking community.
So much hate, almost only hate. But it also was amazing because it turned out that we lived like a block away from each other
Yep.
in Hollywood. So we were able to hang out together, went to church together. And you were my first Christian friend in Hollywood. I ended up meeting, more, but you were also like my neighbor. So it was
Yeah.
a blessed meeting. And I'm so glad you reached out because our friendship through the years has really edified me and grown me, and you've just been such a great supporter and friend. So I'm really glad that you reached out 8 years ago.
Man, me too. I can't even believe it. Time has flown. And yeah, that was a time I needed someone who had the same vision, which felt so slim in so many areas of exactly what you've been doing with both this podcast and your films and everything you're doing. So it was a huge edification, and it has been to me as well. So yeah, proximity matters. I love that we were neighbors, and but yeah, and so yeah, and from there we were buds. We hung out, we talked philosophy and theology and art over drinks, and for many years. And then I went out to, you were shooting a movie. You got a movie together that you wrote in like a night, and you ended up filming this huge feature about the opioid epidemic. And I went out, and we had even more fun when the first time I actually got to be on set with you. And I was out there for a month shooting your film, which was just a blast. And boy, do we have stories. And so that was the first time I started conceptualizing, watching you work, watching you direct, seeing how you interacted with actors, seeing if you were actually a Christian and nice to people, or you were just, just a big blowhard and it wasn't real. But I watched you under these, crazy huge production with 1 million people, a few things that I was kind of sitting there as an actor. I love just being an actor because I just get to do nothing and just sit there and enjoy the show. But I loved watching you as you not only had an artistic vision that you were bringing to life, but even behind the scenes on set, you were orchestrating, you're basically pastoring the entire set. You didn't lose your cool once. I still can't believe it with all the stuff that went down and just the everyday crisis that would happen. I still can't believe you never lost it. But I watched you be someone who was a person of character and love to all the people around you, every actor, every PA, and also someone who had a high artistic vision. So this thought kind of started in my head, like, I want to work with him as a director one of these days on a film. I was then, but I want to do something together. I want to conceptualize a project together. And so, years go by after that. I'm in New York at some point, you're in LA, we're still keeping up. But I just have this thought, and I'm like, one, I am an actor, and I want to be in a Western, right? Who doesn't want to be in a Western? Every guy actor's like, I want to wear a hat and point a gun and run around and, look cool. It didn't help that I played lots of Red Dead Redemption. And so I was like, I want to, I grew up on the Westerns. So I want to do that. I also want this to be a film that explores and promotes the faith that I find so beautiful. But I also want it to be one that is reflective of a real and challenging and difficult world. So it can actually touch real people. And like, it wasn't even like a millisecond. And by the way, I didn't want to direct. I wanted to just write it and I wanted to act in it, but I wanted someone else to take the artistic vision and run with it. And I was like, it wasn't even a millisecond later, I'm like, oh, obviously Spencer. And so I remember I called you, I was like, I hope he's game. He's a busy guy. And I was like, hey, do you want to make a Western with me? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And so that kind of started the process. The script came together. I would talk to you with the different story elements. You and McKenna would give me feedback. And the script came together, and just like little by little, it kind of all came together until we found ourselves in the middle of the Rocky Mountains on a ranch with a bunch of people and prop guns and a story, and running around like crazy with a big old camera, and we brought a movie together and brought it to life, and it's coming out tomorrow. I still can't believe it. So yeah, that's kind of the story of why I made it, how I made it, and how we made it. So yeah, that's behind.
I love it. And it was so great working with you, and it's on Shooting Heroin, and that was a crazy set, and you did such a great job as Pete. You're in all the trailers. People can definitely see you in the film frequently. And it's just so great to work with people you like working with, because making a movie is one of the most difficult things in the world from my experience. And when you're working with people that are hard to work with, or you just don't like, or they don't like you, it makes your job so much harder, especially as the director. But whenever you're working with like friends and brothers in Christ, it's just such a gift. And like you and like Jeremy John Wells and a few other friends that I brought to the set of shooting Heroin, it's like you all kept me sane and grounded, because that was a very difficult set. And we shot that film in a very short amount of time with a lot of locations and a huge budget and everything else. So it was so great working with you on set that first time. And I knew that you had been on so many sets, your own films, as well as so much, network and studio television and films. And so that was a great experience. And it was always just so nice whenever things like shit constantly kept hitting the fan on the set of shooting Heroin. And I could just like look over at you and be like, you know me, you know what's going on. And it just like, it gave me some assurances that I wasn't crazy in the midst of this firestorm.
Oh man, oh, yeah, the amount of looks, and we carried those looks in The Bright Sky too, is the amount of just I got you looks. There's in How I Met Your Mother, there's this running gag where they talk to each other subliminally through just facial expressions. We have our looks down now, Spencer. I know exactly what you're thinking when something hits the fan. But you're totally right in that like idea, because I really encourage filmmakers and actors of faith, and I know it's a big jump, but to work in the secular world, it's there you're going to find the best of the best. If you want to make actually good movies, you need to be learning from and engage in the community of people who do it the best. Not to mention dark places, difficult places, secular places need people of faith to be there to offer redemption and hope and love. But even more than that, if you want to be a good artist, if you want to be a good actor, filmmaker, you need to be there. But it can get lonely sometimes. It can be somewhat isolating when you live in a place that you're surrounded by people who don't share your vision of reality, who don't share your belief, your faith. And so to be able to find people within that context, within the big industry context, secular industry context, is so valuable when you're on set with other people, because it actually enables you to love other people better, love people who don't believe what you believe better, if you can have a few comrades in that experience. And so that is absolutely what you have been and are. So yeah, the looks are there, so I love them.
we have a really great shorthand, and it developed even more so on Bright Sky. And Bright Sky, as soon as you told me the idea for this story, and I think there was a couple different titles, but Bright Sky, is such a great title, and I think it's just a really great film and a really great script and story that you've written and now is told. But you also put together all the elements, like as the producer of the film, like you put together all the elements, the location, shooting like an area in which you grew up, which is what I typically do with my own movies. Yep. And I had visited Colorado, but I never had the opportunity to film there or work there in this capacity. And even like the ranch you found that the entire film takes place at practically is so beautiful, and it's really, really secluded. I mean, it's like 3 hours off the beaten path or away from any civilization. And the locations, which make up so much of an independent film, and for a Western, you just did a really great job putting this movie together, because like most of what you see on the screen is the pre-planning, pre-production that you and Keelia and Lou and your team did, and just filming in your, somewhat of your hometown or your backyard, a little bit further away, that ranch location, but still, I was so amazed when I got to Colorado, because we've been talking about this story for years, and you wrote the script and you finalized the script, and it was all contained within this location. We did have, what was it, 1 day of filming in Los Angeles?
We did, yes, on a little sound stage studio
for the
place.
brothel.
Yeah, for the brothel scene. We couldn't find any good brothels in Colorado. But of course, LA had a good standing brothel set.
LA had so many, and this place was so seedy and so dirty. Oh man. But the rest of the locations were a delight to film in. You always have that one location that's tough, just on like your emotional and physical realms. But, in the cabin that you found too was so incredible, because it also had our housing. So we like lived on set in the middle of nowhere on, how large of an acre ranch was that?
I think it's like, I could be getting this totally wrong. I think it's like over 1,000 acres. It's huge. And it was like really fun because this is one of the things I love about shooting on location. You wake up on set. So, everyone the night before had been watching movies and eating and doing all that. So it's like, you have to remake set every morning, but it's like so much fun it's like, to be honest, it feels like summer camp.
Yeah.
And I remember we put Rankin and Joseph out in the bunkhouse is what they call it, where all the old, I guess in the old days where all the rustlers would live if anyone watches Yellowstone. But it was just so much fun. It felt like summer camp, a stressful summer camp making a movie, but like, as you said, I was around people I enjoyed and loved and liked. And it was cool because I was able to kind of have the best of both worlds. I got to shoot in what I consider one of the most beautiful places in the world, my home, Colorado. But I also got to fly in all of these actors and talent and crew from places like Atlanta, New York City, and Los Angeles. And so I got to have the best of both worlds, shoot in my home with that top tier talent from around the country. So it really, really was a blast. And I remember, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but this is the Hard Faith podcast. We were looking for a jail. Do you remember this?
Oh,
we
yeah.
had to find that jail. We tried making a jail. We tried like makeshifting jails. Like, no, we need a real jail. And so the only like old Western jail that's in Colorado is in this tiny little town called Cripple Creek. And Cripple Creek is like, it's filled with old casinos. It's like literally like an old fashioned Western town that's just hung around. And so we went and found, and by the way, they were all too happy. Like, yeah, you shooting a movie? Come on in. And so we filmed this like real, actual old jail with the doors that clang and all that. And then afterwards, I remember it was like midway through, we were done with that section of the film, and we had like a pre-wrap party, just running around in Cripple Creek, playing some blackjack and drinking some mixed drinks. It was a blast. I still look back at that with such fond memories.
That was one of the best days on any set I've ever been on. We got pizza, we ran around Cripple Creek. It was a lot of fun. And that location was incredible because we had looked at movie magic ways, even shooting in basements, of how to do a jail. But the actual jail that you found in Cripple Creek, this historic, like 100-year-old jail, adds so much production quality and so much production value. And it just looks amazing. And it's such a perfect way to end the film. So that was such a great find. And it was far off the beaten path, like all the locations, but it was well worth the travel. And we had a lot of fun doing it.
Half of production was driving, but that's okay. It's a pretty place to drive.
It was. And yet we still shot the film in, what was it, like 9 days, 10 days, 11 days?
I think without including the day in LA, I think we shot, it was 7 days. I don't want to overspeak. I believe we shot in 7 days. And that just is a testament to your work ethic. Like we were like a day ahead of time. I'm sure our crew and our cast were just like, probably just exhausted by the end. But you are kind of one of these directors and producers who just doesn't, once you're in your work mode, you are there until it's done. And so I actually love that because we both have the same like energy for like, once we start, we're not losing momentum, and we just plowed through that thing. I really can't even believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing because even if you include LA, it's like an 8-day shoot for a full feature with a number of locations. Obviously, the bulk of it was shot on that ranch, but it was amazing. And two, like the weather was crazy, which I always love when the weather's crazy on a set because you get so much interesting visuals. But as you'll see in the trailer, whenever you watch the movie, like the standoff scene with you and Keelia is just amazing because there's this wild lightning rainstorm happening in like one of the most dramatic, moving scenes, and you and Keelia nailed the performances in the middle of like what felt like a tornado.
It was kind of crazy. I feel like the weather played a role in the movie, and it feels like God was like, this is so overused. Like God was the cinematographer, God was the locations manager. But in a way, it was insane because I remember that scene. It's kind of one of the most heavy and weighty, important scenes there, and we had to get it. Like that was, we were about to leave the ranch. Not too long. We had so much more to shoot. We had to get that scene. It was really important. And so we're like, okay, let's do it. And right as we start rolling, we see the clouds start coming in. We're like, oh my gosh, no way. But it ended up being so beautiful as the storm comes in over this intense, weighty scene. So it was like it worked absolutely perfectly. But it is so crazy how like those things kind of happen every now and again. I just found it when everything meets right at the right time.
I love it. It happened for me on Generational Sins. Like we had this crazy weather out of the blue, not predicted. And it just really, like you kind of feel God's presence in that moment. But like that scene too is like one of those scenes, and I think every movie has it, and I really feel it whenever I'm directing. It's like, if you don't get this scene right, the whole movie doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we're getting this scene right thanks to yours and Kelia's incredible performance, but also just like technically too. It's like, you know, Joseph, who is being like first AD and PA and everything else, because literally our crew was like 3 people, including me. You know, he's holding an umbrella because it's literally starting to rain while you guys are still delivering your final lines. And like there's lightning striking within yards away. So it was so amazing how it all turned out. And that scene is such a powerful scene. And it just, we got it right before like the rain poured down.
And you are so kind to give Keelan and I credit, and I really thank you for that. But let's not forget, you spent like 3-4 months just trying to get the color right on that scene, and you nailed it. But oh my gosh, the amount of effort you put not only into filming it, but making sure the color was perfect. Again, that's why the scene, it was a multitude of people for that scene, and that's still one of my very favorite scenes in the movie. Absolutely.
I love that scene. And 2, you had asked me early on to be a DP director, which I had done before, but I had not done recently. I mean, I'm always filming, and thankfully I own a Red camera, but I hadn't done a feature for like a decade as a DP director. And y'all were gracious with me because honestly, like in such a short shoot, being 7 days in Colorado, I feel like the first day we had to completely reshoot because I was still remembering how to work my own camera and with like no lighting and everything else, and just not understanding the limitations of my camera. And so we even in a 7-day shoot, we reshot scenes. And I think the craziest thing of all, because I don't necessarily consider myself as a DP, you know, Content Film Festival gave us an award for cinematography. And it's just like,
that should tell you something, Spencer. That is your artistic skill right there. But by the way, this is how artists should be. They should just hate watching themselves. They should hate seeing their work and only see the mistakes. And then it takes someone else to actually award and display your talent. So Spencer, this is a testament to you, both your humility and your talent.
Well, thank you for you know, I learned a lot on Bright Sky. One of the things I love about Bright Sky is how contained it was. It's a proper independent film, and yet it has all the benchmarks of a real cinematic movie. Great pacing, great story, classic story, you know, kind of timeless because you were smart in not setting it in like cell phone age, but just before cell phone age. Feels like a Western. And I've been amazed too, because it was not only a stretch and a growing experience for me shooting as a DP director, and often I shoot my own script, shooting someone else's script that was so well written, but I've never, in Hard Faith, has never made a film that was so widely accepted by the traditional faith-based film festivals and faith-based filmmakers. But it still had the grit. Like, it's still a PG-13 film. It's still truthful. It's still edgy, but it wasn't shooting heroin or Generational Sins. And so it's been such a eye-opening experience for me getting to meet all these fellow faith-based filmmakers at the festivals that Bright Sky's been playing at, because it's just a whole world that was too nervous about Hard Faith and our films. But Bright Sky is like a really nice combination of still being a true, real, authentic, beautiful, high art film and having a very clear faith message that had some grit, but wasn't necessarily offensive to the traditional masses.
It was a difficult line to walk because, you know, I know that this is not cool to say, but I want to make movies people want to see. I know that's not cool. You're supposed to make movies only for yourself, but but art to me is a service. It's something that you offer to people. And so that was, you know, keeping that in mind, the people that I wanted to see this movie, that was an interesting line to walk, because I want, I know this sounds a little grandiose, but I want everyone to be able to walk into this film. And so figuring out what kind of grit can we show, or how can we show it in a way that won't push people away, they feel like they won't see it, but still is honest and authentic to the reality of what darkness is like in the world and how people grapple with it. And I think we ended up in a really, really good place. This is a movie that grapples with really heavy, deep darkness. This is, not a movie for kids, but it does so in a way that's invitational to people who might have a more difficult time interacting with more explicit darkness. So I think we walked that line well. We'll see what kind of letters we get and reviews we receive. But that's something I wanted to do. I wanted to make this a movie that both dealt with the darkness and grappled with it in an authentic way, but also was invitational to people of all kinds to come and watch and engage with the story. It's a difficult line, but I think we did it.
I think we did it, yeah. And anytime I'm making a hard faith film, I always say, like, this is an experiment. Like, I've gone very far, maybe as Christians would say, off the deep end with trying to wrestle with the dark issue whilst retaining the dark world in which we live in. And then, after this, I made a Christmas movie that was PG, and so is also on the other far end of the spectrum while still talking about hard issues and truth. And Bright Skies is such a fun combination because I find it to be very artistic, the location, the performances, the actors, the setting, the genre, the story, and it still has like objective truth in it. It doesn't shy away from the faith, and yet it's still approachable to general audiences, which I think is like the best combination.
I hope so. I guess we'll see tomorrow, but I'm really hoping that people will feel connection to this film. I hope all kinds of people feel connection to this film and find some depth and inspiration there.
Yeah. And also, you did such a great job at casting this film. Not only did you cast yourself as the lead well, because you did a phenomenal job, but also, it's so fun, and the natural chemistry that you and your wife, Keelia, have. Keelia being a lead in the film and doing such a phenomenal job. Elias, Camille, being your son in the movie, he did such a wonderful job, and such a beautiful family, him and his dad, Orlando. Darwin, Rankin, Sharon. I mean, there's so many great actors in this movie, and actors and faces I've seen, for years, but never had the chance to work with. And you connected them all in the middle of nowhere, Colorado.
Yeah, it is. One of the things I do pride myself on is, one, I love forming close relationships with good people, but two, the thing I pride myself on is being able to really see and acquire really talented, good people for creative things and creative projects. And both on the cast level, I've just been so blessed to be able to work with really, really talented people who many of whom share my faith, but who are also on the other side of that, like the top of their talent. It's just amazing it's almost like a treasure hunt in my career, searching for these people. And I've met enough that when I'm doing something and making something, I can give them a call and say, hey, I want your talent, but I also want your character and your personality here. And that goes for the crew as well. I feel that I have a gift in finding really great people who I know will work together well, but also bring an A game and quality, as did you. And so that is something I'm really, really proud of, that I was able to get all of these they're actually amazing humans, and they're amazing artists all at once. And so I'm really, really happy, because I do think, as a filmmaker of faith, I want to create something that's beautiful and good in quality if I'm reflecting God, who is beautiful, good, and quality. And so that is an important thing to me, but it's also so cool that I can do that with people who are also really wonderful human beings. So yeah, that was a really cool thing to see happen.
That is a tremendous gift, and I think such an essential gift, especially in the filmmaking community, is to bring like skilled, quality people and great artists together. And everyone on that set was just 110% doing multiple roles, especially like Rankin being our sound guy and our lead bad guy. And just everyone was completely in it to make the best film possible. And we utilized every second of those 7 days.
Yes, we did. Oh my gosh, we could have used a few more seconds, but I think we actually got it done in the allotted seconds we were given, which was not many, but we did it.
Yeah, there's a G.K. Chesterton quote. I think it's him. I hope I'm attributing him correctly. But it says, art is limitation. The essence of every image is the frame. And, I think that this film taught me so much about how much you can do with limitations. A short shooting schedule, not a huge budget, contained locations, still genre and a little bit period. But we did so much in such a short time period on limited resources and made a really great movie, which I think it re-inspired me because I started with no budget films. And so the film I did before this was my largest budget movie, Shooting Heroin. But it was so refreshing to strip down all the departments, all the fat and, pork that can be in a big budget movie, and just get down to basics of telling a really good story with a few really great artists.
Yeah, I completely agree. Of course, we all want to be in the, million crewed Avengers movie and have $2 billion at our disposal. But there's something kind of beautiful about having those artistic limitations, because you actually have to use your skill and creativity inside the parameters that you're given. And so I feel like that actually almost brings out more creativity, because you can't rest on the laurels of, we can fix it in post, or we can buy something. It's like, no, we got to get creative now. We got to be really creative. And I almost feels like it pushes artistic ability from everyone to give their very, very best. And I really think that happened on this film.
I couldn't agree more. It was a really fun challenge, honestly, because even sets or scenes that felt like they weren't, like they could have been benefited by bigger resources or bigger production, it's like you and I were forced to collaborate together to get the very best possible out of just shooting in the middle of a field, or
with a storm coming in.
Yeah, with a storm coming in, or shooting in the prison, or shooting at the gate to the ranch. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It just felt like a really creative puzzle and a really edifying, gratifying, creative exercise.
There was also, I think, another testament to its success, and this is a big part of what you did as well. I remember we did a lot of prep work, not just in talking about the script or logistic things, but I remember you sending Keelia and you're like, I want inspiration for your characters, so I know how to shoot you, so I know how to light you. I want to capture the feeling in the, as the kids are saying, the vibe of these characters in this movie. And so I remember you said, I want visual stuff. I want you to send me characters from movies that you really want to reflect as a part of your performance and the part of the character you're putting together. But it even things like that bring to even a small budget film a real creative depth that I think really shows in the performances and the vibe of this movie.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and you and Keelia did such a great job of defining your characters before we got to set, because I knew we had such a short shooting period, 7 days. And to be quite honest, like on a lot of my longer shoot or bigger budget films, it's like the actors and I, as their director, we find their character on the third or fourth day, and then if necessary, we reshoot some of those scenes or try and shoot easier scenes, less character-driven scenes at the beginning of the shoot, because I know that we're all trying to find these characters. But was so great working with you beforehand and just knowing you and Keelia personally, but what your inspirations wanted to be is like, it's like as soon as we turn on the camera the first day, those characters were there. And
yeah.
So, and that's great. And that's how I really think I should be in the future. But it was so fun that actually is how it turned out on this set with such limited time.
That was I think it was such a good idea on your part too, because I didn't even think of it. I'm kind of a land and run person, but you had us thinking about the characters months before we even stepped on set. That was a really, really cool thing.
I loved it. It was a great experience. And I really do think audiences are going to love it. I can't wait to hear the feedback, on IMDb, whatever critics review it. Every film is a learning experience, and I'm really proud of the film that we made together, Bright Sky, and I really hope audiences enjoy it.
Man, I'm proud too. Thank you for being a part of it.
Absolutely. And someday we'll announce the details of Bright Sky 2. The sequel, the revenge of Bright Sky.
But for that one, I need a year-long shooting schedule and $2 billion to make it.
I know. My wife wants it to be called Dark Sky.
Dark Sky. Hey, I'm all here for it. That's great.
How our audiences, even though they're already acquainted with you, if they want to follow along with your artistic journey, what you've made, what you're writing, what you're doing next, how can they follow you? What are your links and socials?
Yeah, you can. I'm on most of the socials under Nathan Clarkson. You can go to my website, nathanclarkson.me. You can also follow along on a column I write for Patheos called Cross and Culture, which is I write articles and do listicles and have interviews. And it's all kind of centered around the intersection of faith and art. So I'd love for you to check that out. And I also host a podcast, which you will be able to hear this fine gentleman on very soon, called The Overthinkers. So check all that stuff out. I love connecting with people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to the Hard Faith podcast and Making Bright Sky. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me, Spencer.
Thanks so much for listening to the Hard Faith podcast. Please subscribe and share. Visit hardfaith.org to learn more.